świata, prezydent Trump w tej chwili jest na podium. Ja jak zwykle kłamie, że jest super ekonomia, że wszystko jest perfekt. Kłamie bez przerwy. No tak.
We didn't have people coming in from jails and prisons and everything like took place over the last 4 years. They'll never forget what happened to this country over the last 4 years with the incompetence. There could be no higher honor than to serve as your commander-in-chief. It is a great honor. I look at you, you're just incredible people. Central casting, I might add. To each and every one of you, I thank you for your unwavering devotion to the armed forces and to the country that we've all sworn a sacred oath to defend. We all have that oath, every one of us. I'm thrilled to be here this morning to address the senior leadership of what is once again known around the world as the Department of War. I know Pete spoke about it. He gave a great speech, I thought. Great speech. I don't want him to get so good. I hate that. You know? No, I hate it. I almost fired him. I said, you can't, I don't want to go on after that. No, he gave a great speech, but he talked about Department of War. We were sitting there. I said, didn't it used to be called the Department of War? Yeah, he goes, yes.
A że mówi prezydent, że nazwał ten Departament Obrony na Departament Wojny. Na razie o tym mówi do tych generałów, admirałów, ale później w programie powiem więcej.
And then we went in a way woke. That was probably the first sign of wokeness. And we changed it to defense instead of war. And I said, what do you think? How do you think if we changed it back? Would that be a nice idea? And Pete loved it immediately. Some people thought about it. You know, they gave it a little thought. But in the end, we did it. And I have to be honest, it's so popular. I thought it would be met with fury on the left. But they're sort of giving up, I must be honest with you. They've had it. They've had it with Trump. They've been after me for so many years now. Here we are. Here we are. Come to the White House anytime you'd like. Now they've given up. Bad, a lot of bad people. But all over, it's been so popular. It's been very popular. I really thought that we were going to have to sort of fight it through. There's been no fight. There's been no fight. Like what I called the Gulf of America, the Gulf of America. Because to me, it was always the Gulf of America. I could never understand. We have 92% of the frontage. And for years, actually 350 years, they were there before us. It was called the Gulf of Mexico. I just had this idea. I'm looking at a map. I'm saying, we have most of the frontage. Why is it Gulf of Mexico? Why isn't it the Gulf of America? And I made the change, and it went smoothly. I mean, we had a couple of fake news outlets that refused to make the change. And then one of them, AP, took us to court. And we won, and the judge, who was a somewhat liberal judge, said the name is the Gulf of America, because AP refused to call it the Gulf of America. They wrote, they're not a good outfit, by the way. They call it the Gulf of Mexico. I said, no, the Gulf of America is the name. And the judge actually said that, in fact, you can't even go into the room because what you're doing is not appropriate. The name is the Gulf of America. Google Maps changed the name. Everybody did, but AP wouldn't, and then we won in court. How about that? Isn't that so cool? The Secretary Hexler beautifully described the name change reflects far more than the shift in branding. It's really a historic reassertion of our purpose and our identity and our pride. That's when we go with the word war. And you know, we want war because we want to have no wars. But you have to be there, and you know, sometimes you have to do it. I have settled so many wars since we're here. We're here almost 9 months, and I've settled 7. And yesterday we might have settled the biggest of them all. Although I don't know, Pakistan, India was very big. Both nuclear powers. I settled that.
No nie mogę teraz, bo musiałbym przerwać transmisję. Nie mogę włożyć teraz w gimbal. Albo statyw nie mogę, na razie nie mogę.
But we got it, I think, settled. We'll see. Hamas has to agree. And if they don't, it's going to be very tough on them, but it is what it is. But all of the Arab nations, Muslim nations have agreed. Israel has agreed. It's an amazing thing. It just came together. War is very strange. You know, you never know what's going to happen with war. The easiest one of them all is Putin. I said Number one, it's a war that would have never happened if I were president, if the election weren't rigged. If I were president, that war would have never happened, not even a little chance. And it didn't happen for 4 years. But I knew Putin very well, and I thought that would be easy because I knew him so well. Well, that one turned out to be the hardest of them all. We had some that were not settlable, and they all got settled. So if this works out, that we did yesterday with the Middle East, then that's more than a war. That's lots of wars. That's all combined. That's a lot of wars. Many of you were over there in many different capacities in many different countries. That's a big part of the earth. But if that works out, it would be 8+. I could give myself 2 or 3 for that one. And then we just have the one to settle. We have to settle it up with President Putin and Zelensky. Got to get them together and get it done. But the only way we can do that is through strength. I mean, if we were weak, they wouldn't even take my phone call. But we have extreme strength. We had the horror show in Afghanistan, which is really the reason I think that Putin went in. He saw that horror show by Biden and his team of incompetent people. And that showed, I think it gave him a path in. I wasn't there any longer. I watched that, and it was so horrible. I think it was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. And now we're back. That's it. We're not going to have any of that crap happen, I can tell you. That was terrible, so terrible. Together we're reawakening the warrior spirit, and this is a spirit that won and built this nation, and from the cavalry that tamed the Great Plains to the ferocious and yielding power of Patton Bradley and the great General Douglas MacArthur. These are all great men. In this effort, we're a team, and so my message to you is very simple. I am with you, I support you, and as president, I have your backs 100%. You'll never see me even waver a little bit. It's the way it is. And that includes our great police officers and firemen and all of these people that are doing so well. Together over the next few years, we're going to make our military stronger, tougher, faster, fiercer, and more powerful than it has ever been before. I rebuilt our nuclear, as you probably know, but we'll upgrade that also and just hope we never have to use it. We have to hope we never have to use it, because the power of that is so incredible. I see things I don't think they'd show it to you. I really wouldn't want them to show it to you. But when you see the result of what's left, you never want to use that. Never, never, ever. We were a little bit threatened by Russia recently, and I sent a submarine, nuclear submarine, the most lethal weapon ever made. Number one, you can't detect it. There's no way. We're 25 years ahead of Russia and China in submarines. Russia's actually second in submarines. China's third, but they're coming up. They're coming up. They're way lower in nuclear too, but in 5 years they'll be equal. They're coming up. And you don't have to be that good with nuclear. You could have 1/20th what you have now and still do the damage that would be, that'd be so horrendous. But I announced that, based on his mention of nuclear, and it was really a stupid person that works for him mentioned the word nuclear, I moved a submarine or two, I won't say about the two, over to the coast of Russia, just to be careful, because we can't let people throw around that word. I call it the N-word. There are 2 N-words, and you can't use either of them. Can't use either of them. And frankly, if it does get to use, we have more than anybody else. We have better, we have newer, but it's something we don't ever want to even have to think about. But when somebody mentions it, that submarine started immediately thereafter. And it's just lurking, but I'm sure we're not going to have to use it. But it's an amazing, it's undetectable, totally. Ours is, theirs isn't. Theirs are totally detectable. We can detect them easily. We go right to the spot. But we have genius apparatus that doesn't allow detection. It doesn't allow detection at all by anybody above water or below water. It's incredible. We're way ahead of everybody in that and other things. As a result of the exciting renewal of the spirit of our armed forces, and that's what it is. It's really reaching that spirit, unprecedented heights. Over the past 8 months, new enlistments, I'm so proud of this, have surged to record highs, the highest we've ever had. And we used to have recruiting shortages. If you remember, about a year and a half ago, I was at the beginning stage of a campaign, and things came out that you couldn't get people to join the armed forces. And by the way, the police also. Fire department, I always put the fire department in because they're great. They're great. And I got 95% of their vote too, that helps. When you get 95% of their vote, you always have to mention them. But they're great. And they're brave in our inner cities, which we're going to be talking about, because it's a big part of war now. It's a big part of war. But the firemen go up on ladders and you have people shooting at them while they're up on ladders. I don't even know if anybody heard that. And I said, don't talk about it much, but I think you have to. Our firemen are incredible. They're up on one of these ladders that goes way up to the sky, rescuing people, and you have animals shooting at them, shooting bullets at firemen that are way up in death territory. You fall off that ladder, it's over. It's over. They don't even have to inspect you when you hit the ground. And you have people shooting bullets at them in some of these inner cities. We're not going to let that happen. So I always mention the firemen because that's actually a big problem we have. They are unbelievable. Like you, they're unbelievable people. For the first time on record in 2025, the Navy, Air Force, and Space Force all met or surpassed their recruiting goals 3 months early. That never happened before. And the Army did even better. Congratulations, Army. They met everything. And these were the highest standards because we're making it larger. So these were much higher standards than you had 4 years ago, 3 years ago, during the sleepy Joe Biden era. And the Army did it 4 months early. And you remember, a year and a half ago, they said the big stories that we're way behind with the Army, Air Force, the Navy, the Marines, we're way behind, Coast Guard, and even Space Force. I love Space Force because that was my creation. You know, when you create something, I love it. And the people we put in there were good. I got that right. We put in great people initially, and we really dominated. We really dominate in that sphere now. We're way behind China and Russia, and now we dominate. Space Force turned out to be a very important thing. I said from the beginning, you know, when Biden came into office, he wanted to terminate it. He said, and this thing called Space Force, so we could get rid of that. And he got hammered by the people in this room for even suggesting it, because it's very important, one of the most important. And as time goes by, it'll get more and more important. But we're now at 106% of our recruiting targets for the year, and that's the best in far more than a generation. And for the Marines, morale is so strong that the Marine Corps will meet its 2026 retention targets before the end of October, which never happens. And that's the earliest it's ever happened in the history of our country. And it makes you feel good, you know. I felt guilty. I'd go make a speech in front of never people like you. You are the leaders, but people, soldiers. And I felt embarrassed because there'd be stories about, you know, we couldn't fill up our Army, Navy, Air Force. We couldn't fill them up. And it was headlines. It was during Biden's 4 years. The auto pen, I call him the auto pen. It's, how would you like to have your thing signed by an auto pen? You know, when I have a general and I have to sign for a general because we have beautiful paper, the gorgeous paper, I said throw a little more gold on it, they deserve it. I want the A paper, not the D paper. We used to sign a piece of garbage. I said, this man's going to be a general, right? Yeah. I don't want to use this. I want to use the big, beautiful, firm paper. I want to use the real gold writing when you talk about the position, and they're beautiful. And, but how would you like to have that where some kid sitting in the back office is having it signed with an auto pen? I thought about it, and I thought about you people first, admirals, generals. I said, somebody works this. his whole life, he gets into maybe the academies or wherever, but however you got there, and you go through years of work, and now you become an admiral or a general or whatever. And when you do, the President of the United States signs your commission, as you know, and that commission is beautifully displayed. And I sign it. Actually, I love my signature, I really do. Everyone loves my signature. But I signed it very proudly, and I always think to myself, how can you have an auto pen sign this? It's just so disrespectful. To me, it's just totally disrespectful. And it turned out that almost everything he did was signed by auto pen, except for when he gave his son, Hunter, pardon. He signed that one. And that's actually the worst signature I've ever seen. That was the bad. The auto pen looks much better. But as leaders, commitment to every patriot who put on the uniform is to ensure that American military remains the most lethal and dominant on the planet. Not merely for a few years, but for the decades and generations to come, for centuries. We must be so strong that no nation will dare challenge us, so powerful that no enemy will dare threaten us, and so capable that no adversary can even think about beating us. And we've had it recently. I had India and Pakistan were going at it, and I called them both. And in this case, I used trade. I'm not going to trade with you. You still two nuclear nations, big nuclear. And no, you cannot do that. I said, yes, I can. You go into this freaking war that I'm hearing about. You know, actually, they just shot down 7 planes. 7 planes, it was starting. There's a lot of bad blood. And I said, you do this, there's not going to be any trade. And I stopped the war. It was going, it was raging.
Kłamie, kłamca pieprzony, kłamie. Nic, żadnej wojny nie zatrzymał z Pakistanem. Kłamie.
The field marshal was a very important guy in Pakistan, and he was here 3 days ago. And I didn't even realize it as beautifully as he said it, but he said that to a group of people that were with us, 2 generals, but a group, he said this man saved millions of lives because he saved the war from going on. That war was going to get very bad, very, very bad. President Trump saved millions and millions of lives.
Tak.
And I was very honored. I loved the way he said it. Susie Wiles was there. She said that was the most beautiful thing. But we saved a lot of them. Saved a lot of them. Even in Africa we saved.
Następne kłamstwo.
With Rwanda. They've been fighting for 31 years, 10 million people dead. I got that one done. And very proud of it. So if this works out, we'll have 8 in 8 months. That's pretty good. Nobody's ever done that. Will you get the Nobel Prize? Absolutely not. They'll give it to some guy that didn't do a damn thing. They'll give it to a guy that wrote a book about the mind of Donald Trump and what it took to solve the wars. And he'll get the Nobel Prize will go to a writer. Now, but well, let's see what happens. But it's be a big insult to our country. I will tell you that. I don't want it. I want the country to get it. It should get it because there's never been anything like it. Think of it. So if this happens, I think it will. I don't say that lightly because I know more about deals than anybody. This is what my whole life was based on. And they can change, and this can certainly change. But we have just about everybody. We have one signature that we need, and that signature will pay in hell if they don't sign. I hope they sign for their own good and create something really great. But to have done 8 of them is just like such an honor. And then we have Putin and Zelensky. The easiest one of them all. I said, that one I'll get done. I thought that was going to be first. The others were much harder, some of them. Azerbaijan this was going on for 36 years. They said, it's not solvable, so don't do it. I said, I will do it. And I got on the phone with the 2 countries. They were great. I knew immediately. I knew as soon as I started talking to them.
Kłamca pieprzony.
Now they're friends. One said he's been president for 32 years, 22 years. He said, for 22 years I did nothing but kill his people. They were in the room together at the Oval Office. And they started off spread like this. They have the beautiful Resolute desk. And one was here, and one was here. You couldn't get further away. That's the furthest I've ever seen two people in front of me. And as the hour went by, they got closer, closer, closer. And at the end of the hour, we had it done. And they hugged and hugged and hugged. And I said, that's so nice, and you're going to remain friends. And I spoke to them, one of them the other day. He said, no, he's now my friend. But for 22 years, he's been the head of Azerbaijan for 22 years. And the other guy, great guy too, 7. And you know that war, that was a war that was not solvable. He said for 7 years. The other one said for 22 years. All I did was kill his people. That's all I've done. I said, well, we're going to put a stop to that. So we solved that. So it's a great thing. It's a great feeling. You know, you're saving Kosovo and Serbia.
O, no, pewnie.
So
Kłamca
many lives.
pieprzony, że mózg staje. Mnie
Our
ręka
people
boli.
deserve nothing less than the very best, and we're never going to let them down. And if we can solve wars instead of you having to fight wars, wouldn't that be wonderful, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? That's why one of the first executive orders I signed upon taking office was to restore the principle of merit. That's the most important word, other than the word tariff. I love tariffs.
Oh, yeah.
Most beautiful word. But I'm not allowed to say that anymore. I said tariff is my favorite word.
No.
I love the word tariff. You know, we're becoming rich as hell. We have a big case in front of the Supreme Court, but I can't imagine. Because this is what other nations have done to us. And we have, you know, great legal grounds. Oh, but you still have a case. It would be very bad. Something happened. But I said, my favorite word in the English dictionary is the word tariff. And people thought that was strange. And the fake news came over and they really hit me hard on it. They said, what about love? What about religion? What about God? What about wife, family? I got killed when I said tariff is my favorite word. So I changed it. It's now my 5th favorite word. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay
O
with
czym
that.
ty pieprzysz, ty
They
dziadu?
hit me hard. But it is. I mean, when you look at, we've taken in trillions of dollars. We're rich again. And there'll never be, when we finish this out, there'll never be any wealth like what we have. Other countries were taking advantage of us for years and years. You know that better than anybody. And now we're treating them fairly. But the money coming in is, we've never seen anything like it. The other day they had 31 billion that they found.
No
$31 billion.
pewnie. Kłamca,
So we found
kłamca,
$31 billion
wstrętny
and we're
kłamca.
not sure from where it came.
Kłamiesz, dziadu, kłamiesz.
Financial guy. I said, well, what does that mean? He said, we don't know where it came. I said, check the tariff shelf.
Yeah.
The tariffs haven't started. in
Oh,
that sector
yeah,
yet.
yeah.
I said, yes, they have. They started 7 weeks ago. Check it. Comes back 20 minutes later. Sir, you're right. It came from tariffs. 31 billion.
I na
That's enough to
pewno.
buy a lot of battleships.
Tak, cwaniaku ty.
To use an old term. I think we should maybe start thinking about battleships, by the way. You know, we have a Secretary of the Navy came to me because I look at the Iowa out in California and I look at different ships and the old pictures. I used to watch Victory at Sea. I love Victory at Sea. Look at these admirals. It's got to be your all-time in black and white. When I look at those ships, they came with the destroyers alongside of them, and man, nothing was going to stop. They were 20 deep, and they were in a straight line, and there was nothing going to stop them. And we actually talk about, you know, those ships. Some people would say, no, that's old technology. I don't know. I don't think it's old technology when you look at those guns, but it's something we're actually considering, the concept of battleship. Nice 6-inch sides, solid steel, not aluminum that melts if it looks at a missile coming at it. So it's melting as the missile's about 2 miles away. You know, those ships, they don't make them that way anymore, but you look at it and your secretary likes it, and I'm sort of open to it. And bullets are a lot less expensive than missiles. A lot of reasons. I should take a vote, but I'm afraid to take that vote because I may get voted out on that one. But I tell you, it's something we're seriously considering. There were powers. There were big powers. They were just about as mean and scary as you could be. And so we're looking at that. One of the biggest cases that we won was the decision of the United States Supreme Court to allow us to proceed on the word merit. So those two words are right up there. So this is